being available at the point that a patient might need resuscitating. And so these were all new and emerging things that were directly relevant to what staff and those caring for patients with COVID were experiencing. But we also saw some familiar risks that we know about and are there in the system all the time, being exacerbated by the COVID situation. So things such as an increase in patients coming into the health service meant we had to bring trolleys out of commission and recommission them into clinical use. And we saw patients falling from those if they weren't up to the standard that our more modern trolleys were. Staffing, always a challenge, but in areas where they were having to segregate and need more staff, and actually those staff also having to don and doff with full PPE, it made staffing challenges even more challenging. And we know that providing clinical care that is up to date with current clinical guidance is always a challenge, but the rate of guidance that was coming out in respect of COVID was so rapid and so great that actually we saw challenges for clinical staff keeping up with those changing clinical guidelines. We were also able to set up surveillance that was specific to certain specialties. So things such as maternity services, ambulance services, children and young people, we actually broadened our search to do specific dives into those areas so that we were able to have some intelligence around, okay, what's maternity services during times of COVID, what are the challenges there, and likewise for ambulance and children, and that proved very helpful. So I'm going to pass to Graham, who talk about what our options are for doing something with the information that we find.
Lovely. Thank you, Fran. So we do have a number of options that we can use to issue advice and guidance to the NHS in England. We have a range of networks that we have that we can use for raising awareness by and large, but they are very good at gaining frontline insight about the whole job as done, job as seen sort of issues. And we have the medication safety officer networks, over 400 of them. Medical device safety officer networks, again, about 400 of them. We've got maternity safety champions and patient safety specialists in every trust in the country. So they're a very handy network to have. We can obviously work with our partners, which is very useful if we want to issue any advice and guidance to a specific professional group, or where we have identified that the issue may be in their remit. So we have all the Royal Colleges or the associations in England, so we can go and speak to them about their specific issues, or we can work with the arm's length bodies, as we call them, like I say, Public Health England, MHRA, those types of people. Or, as I mentioned earlier, we can issue a National Patient Safety Alert, which is, as I said, is very useful for ensuring system-wide action is implemented across an organisation. If we are to implement a patient safety alert, we have to meet certain criteria. And we have this flow chart that we will use to decide whether an identified issue meets the criteria for issuing a patient safety alert. So first of all, we need to ascertain if it's in our remit. We tend to deal with human error, where things go wrong because of a person in that chain. So if it falls into that, that's fine. If it's actually the adverse drug reaction, or it's a digital issue, then we might pass it over to a better organisation that would have that issue in their remit. We have to ascertain whether there's a risk of death or disability in the next 12 months. And that's obviously it's often a fairly subjective debate, especially given we're looking at the rare and under recognised issues. we will obviously, if we can, try and rapidly address the issue at source. That would be our number one, if we can actually solve it once and for all. But unfortunately, that is a fairly rare occurrence. As Fran has explained earlier, we do deal in the new or under recognized space, so that has to be one of our criteria, or it can be a new or under recognized resource or intervention for a known issue. If it is a new issue, newly under recognized, can we construct the organizational level actions that meet the criteria that I explained earlier to try and reduce the risk of death or disability? And if we can satisfy ourselves for all of those issues, then we will look to issue a national patient safety alert, and we will take the issue to our external stakeholder panel for their insight additionally. So that's the end of our presentation. We're now going to split into two workshops. So by the power of tech, you will be split out into two workshops where either Fran or I will take you through one of the issues we debated during COVID and have a debate about whether you think A, it's a patient safety alert, B, whether we should issue at a time of a pandemic. And then once we've had a 10-minute chat about that, we'll come back into this main group and see how people felt, and then we'll poll and see how you feel about whether it should be a patient safety alert. And then hopefully we'll have time for some questions and answers. So I will look to the tech boys in the background to split you all into a workshop session, and one of us will see you in that session. So see you in a second, hopefully.
I hear you. I can see it. Mm.
The chest drain, and for those of you who might not be clinical, a chest drain is a plastic tube inserted into the chest to drain fluid that might have built up. Patients who have cancer often have what we call a buildup of fluid in the lungs, a pleural effusion, and you need to drain that to allow the patient to breathe. We found that looking into the chest drain issue, that there is something called re-expansion pulmonary edema, which means that the sudden decrease in pressure in the pleural space where the fluid was, when you drain it off too quickly, your lungs rapidly increase, and that pressure difference causes pulmonary edema, so a massive and rapid buildup of fluid in the lungs and a sudden, quite potentially fatal collapse of the patient. So it's very important, and there is guidelines available that say that you should control the rate of fluid offload when you insert a chest drain for the first time, just so that you don't hemodynamically destabilise the patient. So we decided to look into the NRLS to see, are there other cases where patients have been destabilised and been sent into or described symptoms of re-expansion pulmonary edema. When we looked into the NRLS, we found actually there were several cases where patients had an overflowing of the chest drain of fluid and had been found in various stages of collapse, having had their fluid offloaded. We found reports describing a very rapid offload without specifying the time or the volume. We found the reports saying very rapid offload over 2 litres in one go, very rapid offload over 3 litres in one go, and very rapid offload over 8 litres in one go in one case. So in total, we found 11 incidents that were describing quite serious reports of patients, and those patients not being monitored or the patients not being clamped on their drain tubes to control in some way the fluid that was being offloaded. 5 patients suffered an acute deterioration that required intervention. 4 patients the reports were describing hemodynamic instability. And as well as that, we actually conducted, to get further insight, a survey of junior doctors to say, what do you know about chest drains? What do you know about re-expansion pulmonary edema? And actually what that showed was policies really varied. So what I didn't manage to go through, Graham, I literally talked to it because my screen wouldn't share. So I literally talked to it, gave a brief description of the incident, brief description of the background, and a brief description of the type of harm we saw. What we didn't get to were any of the questions. So I think it's only fair to say that what you'll be asked to do and to comment on and to vote is an aggregate of these 4 questions about this particular issue.
That's fine. I mean, it's just one question that we'll be asking the delegates.
Yeah.
My topic that I talked about in our workshop was about the interruption of high flow nasal oxygen. If I was a betting man, I know what the answer will be to our poll, but I may be mistaken. So, what we were talking about in both of the workshops was whether we felt the issue that we were debating would meet the criteria. So if you were in my workshop about high flow nasal oxygen, can you vote now whether you think it would be a national patient safety alert? So you can click yes or no and then submit, and we will collate those answers. Not sure how long the poll's open for, but hey ho, I'll vote. Okay, can we close the poll? Thank you. Do we have the answers to the poll? Just whilst we're waiting for the answers, I would just tell you that for that issue, we did issue a national patient safety alert. We did issue it in the middle of the pandemic, and basically the actions were to identify all your devices, make sure they were clearly labeled and visible so people knew whether they were ones with a power supply. We were advocating you do not start it a high flow in ED if you do not have a plan to be able to transfer the patient, and to look to move to ones with power going forward. So can we now do the vote on Fran's issue, please? So if you were in Fran's session, slightly more difficult, but can we get the poll up? Thank you. And if you can vote. Pardon, Susie? Sorry. Yeah. So the issue was about the chest drain and offload of pleural effusion. So the vast majority of people think it was a patient safety alert. And again, we did actually issue a national patient safety alert on this issue, but we didn't issue it in the middle of the pandemic. We waited until the end of the first wave when things were getting a bit back to normal, in that subjective term, and then we issued it. And it was basically, we worked with the British Thoracic Society and the Association of Respiratory Nurse Specialists, and we developed more guidance about how long they should monitor patients for, and that has now been issued. So that is a brief run through and a bit of background as to what we did and how we did things. So thank you for engaging. And I think now it's just a case of any questions. I've tried to answer some as we went along in the chat box. I'm sure there is more that has come in whilst we've been off. So anybody, yes, sorry.
It was just to say, so we had a really, I think we had a really interesting comment from one of the delegates, Simon, who said, actually the issue around rapid re-expansion pulmonary edema or rapid offload from chest drains has been known about for quite some time.
Yeah.
And I said, absolutely. I think the difficulty was when we looked out, the guidelines exist, but actually those people executing the care were unaware of the sort of theory almost behind the guidance. It seemed that this reason for not rapidly offloading fluid wasn't as well known as perhaps we thought, and one of the most important things was to make it easier for people at the bedside to know and do the right thing, which the alert supported.
Freddie has asked how we ensure the patient safety alerts have impact. That is really difficult. Trying to ascertain the effectiveness of the alerts is very difficult. Some are easier. So we issued one about don't have any unlicensed sodium nitrite in your trust. We can map that through our pharmacy systems. That was easy to do. Something like the chest drain one, where we are trying to implement paper systems or more resources, that's obviously more difficult. Our healthcare regulator, the CQC, who inspect hospitals, they will have sight of our patient safety alerts. They will go in and ask, have you implemented, show me your paperwork, show me how you've changed your system on the back of a patient safety alert. So that is one way we try and ensure those they do have impact. In terms of Emma asking about Welsh Health Board, so Wales do report into the NRLS. Our patient safety alerts are aimed for England because we are NHS England. However, Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland will pick up our patient safety alerts and issue them in their own nations unless they are doing a different piece of work, and it would be crossing over that piece of work. Susie's now going to tell me to shut up because our time is up. Susie, were you going to say something?
there are any further questions, that they can get in touch via this link and ask any questions that they might have there. So that's now in the chat box. The link is in the chat box for anyone wanting it. I'd just like to thank Graham and Fran for a fantastic presentation. Sorry we didn't quite get the workshop working, Fran, but I think we got the gist of what you were talking about and how the alerts work. Graham summed those both up really well at the end of the session. Thank you for everyone for joining, and hope you have a good rest of the day.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And relax.
Yes, Graham. Well done, Fran, in very difficult circumstances. I'm not really sure what was going on there, but...
Thanks, Chris.
Sit down, sit down. Stand up, stand up. Okay. Stand there. Stand. Don't go out. Don't go, Mama. Just stand down. Take first watch this one, huh? Yeah. Watch this. Stand down. Don't go out. Ay, ay. You sit there. Oh, no. Great. Okay. Stand down. Stand first. Yeah, you got to be there. Yeah, boo-boo.
What was that for?